Have you ever wondered how a totally ordinary, boring night can just unravel, like instantly turn into a complete psychological nightmare? Well, welcome to another explainer. Today we're doing a chilling, step-by-step deconstruction of a survival account that asks a pretty terrifying question about the boundaries between our technology and the supernatural. We are going to break down a night gone horribly wrong. We'll look at exactly how the tension builds from just a simple, everyday ringtone to absolute pure terror. Keep your eyes peeled because the progression of these events, it's going to pull you right to the edge of your seat.
Okay, let's just dive right into it. The setting here is absolutely critical. It's a cold Friday night. Our narrator is totally alone. Parents are out of town, and they're in this old house right at the edge of a super quiet, isolated neighborhood. Right away, we've got all the classic elements of vulnerability, right? So they do what literally any of us would do. They watch some movies, eat some snacks, just completely distracted until exhaustion finally hits around 2:30 a.m. They turn everything off. The house is dead silent. And then, at exactly 3 a.m., that silence is violently broken by the ring of a cell phone. Now, what's truly chilling here is actually what isn't there. There's no phone number, there's no city or geographic location. The screen just flashes a single, stark word in this pitch-dark room, unknown. And, in our modern world, we're totally conditioned to just ignore these, right? Like, they're spam, they're wrong numbers, or just annoying automated machines.
I want you to seriously ask yourself for a second. If your phone lit up right now, in the pitch black of your bedroom, would you actually pick it up? Honestly, most people wouldn't. But in this specific account, this person makes the fatal choice to press answer. And they explicitly state that this one single decision destroyed their life forever. Let's look at exactly what was waiting for them on the other end of that line. So the first interaction, it's not actually a threat, it's a plea. After a moment of just heavy silence, a little girl whispers those exact words. And then the call just abruptly ends. Now, our narrator rationalizes this, which, let's be real, is exactly what any of us do when we're faced with something super creepy. They just assume it's some sick prank. But the isolation of that huge, empty house makes that whisper just kind of echo in their mind. And then, a second later, the phone rings again. Same exact unknown number. The absolutely crucial point here is how fast this dynamic shifts. It's no longer a helpless little girl. Now it's a man's voice. He's speaking incredibly slowly, super deep, and he issues a command that pretty much triggers our most primal fear. They freeze. They flat out refuse to turn around, and the voice simply laughs this quiet, unsettling laugh before disconnecting. To kind of calm their nerves, they walk over to the kitchen, but as they pass the hallway mirror, the text describes this split-second reflection of someone standing directly behind them. But when they spin around, nothing. Literally nothing. And this right here brilliantly illustrates the core conflict of the whole narrative. The survivor tries to rely on physical reality to feel safe. They check the entire house, the doors are deadbolted, the windows are latched, completely tight. Physically, the environment is 100% secure. But the threat isn't physical at this point. It's digital. The phone suddenly vibrates with text messages confirming that this entity knows exactly what they just did. First text, "You should have looked behind you." Then, "He's closer now." Those physical locks on the doors, completely useless against whatever is infiltrating their safe space through that tiny device. So in a blind panic, they try to just sever the connection entirely. They power down the phone, but the rules of reality are already starting to break down. This powered-off phone with a pitch-black screen and supposedly zero battery just starts to ring anyway. No way, right? With trembling fingers, they answer it. It's the little girl again, but this time she's crying. She says, "You turned around, didn't you? Now he knows your face." And the exact second that line goes dead, every single light in the entire house goes out. Notice how the threat instantly leaps from the digital space right into the physical house. In the completely unbearable silence of this blackout, they start hearing footsteps. Slow, heavy, and they're coming from the second floor. Armed with literally nothing but a flashlight, they creep up those creaking stairs. Once they reach the top of the dark hallway, they find a bedroom door just standing wide open, a door they absolutely know they closed earlier. And inside that room, the closet door is just slowly moving back and forth, almost as if something massive is inside it, just breathing. Our narrator slowly walks toward the closet. The movement suddenly stops. Just as they reach out for the handle, that impossible phone rings again. But get this, the caller ID this time, it's their own name calling them. Crazy, right? They answer and actually hear their own voice warning them not to open the door.
They quickly step back, and immediately something inside the closet slams against the door with enough violent force to literally shake the walls. Bam! Once, twice, 3 times. And then, just dead silence again. Fleeing that terrifying second floor, the survivor just sprints downstairs to the living room. And here is where we hit a massive structural pivot in the story. They find the front door, which, remember, was securely deadbolted, just standing wide open to the cold night air. But the wet footprints on the welcome mat tell a really terrifying story. They aren't leading in, they're actually leading out. Now, the text tells us they feel this massive wave of relief, just totally assuming the entity has finally left the house. So they rush over to slam and lock the door behind it. But that relief, it's a complete trap. The very second that deadbolt clicks, a whisper brushes directly against their ear. It never left. They whip around, and while the room itself seems totally empty, the mirror across the room reveals the horrifying truth. Standing just inches behind them is this tall, black figure. No eyes, no nose, just a massive, totally grotesque smile stretching all the way across its face. They blink, and the reflection just vanishes. At this point, driven entirely by pure biological fight or flight, they sprint out to their car and speed away into the night. But the environment itself has somehow become hostile. They drive as fast as they possibly can for 10 straight minutes, only to look out the window and realize they're passing their own house again. So they panic and take a totally different road. 5 minutes later, the house appears again. It's a spatial loop. Every single road, no matter which direction they turn, just feeds them right back into the nightmare. Completely desperate, they try to use our ultimate safety net, right? They dial 911, but even that system is completely corrupted. The operator doesn't ask for the nature of the emergency. Instead, this hushed voice just whispers, "Don't let it hear you." The line cuts out, immediately replaced by that same slow, deep breathing sound echoing out of the phone's speaker. And that's the moment they realize there is absolutely no help coming. So they toss the phone onto the passenger seat, look back at the road, and slam on the brakes. That tall, smiling, faceless figure is now standing directly in the glare of the headlights, wearing these torn black clothes. But it doesn't attack. Slowly, it just raises a single finger and points directly at the empty passenger seat inside the car. They look over, and the little girl from that very first phone call is sitting right there. She's crying, and she delivers this incredibly chilling instruction. Don't let him know you can see me. They look back to the road, and the tall figure is just gone. Feeling completely trapped, the survivor speeds right back into the house, locks every single door, draws all the curtains, and basically barricades themselves in their bedroom. Now, when we map out the timeline of this nightmare, the sheer endurance required here is honestly staggering. It all kicked off at 3 a.m. For a solid hour, they endure this absolute relentless psychological torture. But finally, at exactly 4 a.m., the house falls completely dead silent again. That heavy, oppressive atmosphere finally lifts. Now, they just have to wait. And then, thankfully, sunlight breaks. Morning finally arrives. And, this is the classic moment in the source text where our narrator tries to rationalize the whole thing away. Sunlight has a funny way of doing that, doesn't it? They actually kind of laugh at themselves, convincing their exhausted brain that extreme lack of sleep just caused a series of super vivid, terrifying hallucinations. They survive the night. The worst is over. They are safe. Well, the physical evidence shatters that rationalization pretty much instantly. Right there on the bedside table rests this small piece of paper with childish handwriting on it. It says, "Thank you for hiding me." And slipped right underneath that note, an old Polaroid photograph. It's a picture of their own bedroom. But the angle of the photo, that is what's truly horrifying. It was taken from the perspective of someone standing deep inside the closet, looking out at them while they slept. Yeah, unsurprisingly, our narrator moves out that exact same week. They completely abandon the house, the town, the whole shebang. And for a while, the narrative kind of lulls us into this false sense of security. Months pass by. No strange calls. The trauma slowly begins to fade into just a really bad memory. They get a new place, they buy a brand new phone, and they try to rebuild their life, genuinely thinking they successfully ran away from whatever the heck was in that house. But the true horror of this story is built entirely on inevitability. The author snaps the tension right back to reality like a rubber band. The survivor notes that just last night, the exact hour struck again, 3 a.m. That brand new,
unlisted phone suddenly lights up in the dark. But the caller ID doesn't say unknown this time. No, it reads, "Welcome back." Now, they've learned the deadly rule of this game, right? They know exactly how this trap works. So they stare at the screen and they absolutely refuse to answer the call. They think they've won the game just by not engaging with it. Which brings us to the absolutely devastating final twist of this account. The phone finally stops ringing. But the silence is broken anyway, because the whisper doesn't come from the speaker of the phone this time. The voice speaks directly from the pitch-dark corner of their brand new bedroom, whispering simply, "I know you're awake." The entity didn't even need the phone anymore, because way back on that first night, it had already been let in. This source material just brilliantly maps out how simple curiosity can invite utter destruction, and how the very devices we use to feel connected to the world can become the exact things that isolate and completely trap us. It leaves us with this lingering, deeply unsettling thought to chew on. If you wake up tonight, your house is perfectly quiet, the clock is reading exactly 3 a.m., and an unknown number flashes on your screen, will you answer? Well, thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Stay safe out there, and we will see you next time.